Tonight, the rollout.
America wants to be open.
Opening up America again.
We must get people back to work.
One careful step at a time. Around the country, protests over the stay-at-home orders. This as new reports confirm China waited too long to alert the world to the spread of COVID-19.
They knew about the human-to-human transmissibility of this.
Plus,
schools canceled for the rest of the year. No prom, no graduation. Sorry.
High school seniors missing a rite of passage. And the National Cathedral goes blue, honoring healthcare workers with a big thank you. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. The plan to jumpstart the economy already underway. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. The reopening of America again, that's the name of the president's blueprint to restart the country. The plan will roll out gradually in 3 phases, starting today in some places. With some states still in a bitter battle against the outbreak, what kind of feedback is the plan getting from governors on both sides of the aisle? Jennifer Wishon reports.
With 22 million Americans filing for unemployment benefits just last month, pressure is mounting for states to restart their economic engines.
We're opening up our country, and we have to do that. America wants to be open.
The president and his task force suggest states reopen gradually as their cases of COVID-19 decrease. Phase 1, churches, theaters, and some sports locations can open, but with strict social distancing. Phase 2, gatherings of no more than 50 people and travel can resume. Phase 3, life would return to normal for most Americans. New cases would be identified and isolated.
One careful step at a time.
Instead of ramping down, by tomorrow, Maryland and New York residents will be required to wear face masks in public whenever social distancing isn't possible, like on public transportation.
The bad news is 2,000 people walked into a hospital yesterday for the first time with the disease. And the worst news is 600 people died yesterday from the disease.
Other states like Florida, Wisconsin, Idaho, and Michigan plan to start lifting certain restrictions in the coming days and weeks. Health experts warn against moving too fast, though, especially in states with limited testing abilities.
I think 29 states are in that ball game.
And his plan is receiving positive feedback from governors on both sides of the aisle.
And I'm an optimist. We can do this.
In a number of states Thursday, including Ohio, Virginia, and Michigan, Americans protested stay-at-home orders and business closures from economic lockdowns.
The sad irony here is that the protest was that they don't like being in this stay-home order, and they may have just created a need to lengthen it.
And while small businesses across the country still need help, the Paycheck Protection Program, designed to keep their employees on the payroll, is officially out of money after Democrats blocked it, demanding spending for other priorities as well. And there are still medical concerns. Infections could go up again as states ease restrictions.
There may be some setbacks that we may have to pull back a little and then go forward.
But for many, seeing a road forward is welcomed, a move in a positive direction during this trying time. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Thank you, Jennifer. China's government is coming under fire for everything from concealing the extent of the coronavirus outbreak, fatally delaying their response, and preventing researchers from getting to the bottom of the origin of the deadly virus. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson is here now. Abigail, all of this happening as more American lawmakers say it's time for China to pay.
That's right, John. The city of Wuhan raised their death count by 50% today as it's come under fire from global leaders over questions over their actual numbers. Now, in response to this, President Trump says he still doesn't believe that China's numbers are anywhere close to what they've been reporting. And as you said, all of this comes as some lawmakers are calling for China to be held accountable for what they say has been mishandling of the crisis from the get-go.
The Chinese Communist Party is responsible for every single death, every job lost, every retirement nest egg lost from this coronavirus. And Xi Jinping and his Chinese communist apparatchiks must be made to pay the price.
At the start of the coronavirus epidemic, Republican Senator Tom Cotton faced criticism in the mainstream media as a conspiracy theorist for pointing the finger at China. Now that outlets like the Washington Post might be changing their tune, Cotton tells Fox News it's time for action against China.
I think we need to make the American courts open for lawsuits against Chinese communist leaders.
Gordon Chang, author of The Coming Collapse of China, agrees with Cotton's theory that the virus may have come from a biolab accident in Wuhan.
In terms of motivation, this is a really important question because even though this was an accidental release, Beijing had malign motives. Because as I mentioned, they knew about the human-to-human transmissibility of this. They knew, and they urged countries to accept travelers from China.
And tells CBN News' Faith Nation he questions the numbers China's reported.
And in any reporting, you're going to have some delays. But in China, in addition to that, you're also having deliberate falsification because the gap is too large.
And he's concerned with the Chinese government's efforts to prevent foreign researchers from studying the origin of the outbreak.
We know that Beijing has been, as I mentioned, trying to suppress investigation, so they've got something to hide.
Secretary of Defense Mark Esper isn't convinced of the lab theory.
This is something we've been watching closely now for some time. The results are inconclusive.
But says he wishes China had been more transparent earlier.
The majority of the views right now is that it is natural, that it was organic. But I think we need to continue to work this. And once we get beyond the pandemic, we'll have a chance to look back and really find out what happened, and then to take the proper precautions to make sure that we prevent this in the future.
Adding to the tension between the U.S. and China are new reports China might be secretly conducting nuclear tests.
Now, China refutes claims that it's failing to comply with nuclear suspension tests, and they also say that claims that the virus originated in one of their labs have no scientific basis.
Abigail, I know Congress is on recess right now, still negotiating the Payment Protection Program. Where do things stand right now?
Well, unfortunately, they're in a standstill, and as Jennifer said in her piece, that program is out of money. The original $349 billion allocated for those PPP is run dry. It ran dry yesterday. Now, Republicans want to pass a clean bill that would allocate an additional $250 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program. And unfortunately, it has failed to pass twice in the past week, and there have been no additional funds allocated thus far. Here's what Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell had to say about that this week.
Here's where we are. A week later, with absolutely no progress. This morning, the program ran out of money and shut down, just as I warned a week ago. Even now, Senate Democrats are still blocking funding. Every Senate Republican was ready to act today. But Democrats would not let us reopen the program.
Now, Democrats do support an additional $250 billion being allocated to this fund. But where the standoff is that Democrats also want to see money for state and local governments, as well as additional funds for hospitals passed as well. So we're hearing that Speaker Pelosi and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer are working with Secretary Mnuchin to reach some kind of agreement and hopefully get some additional funds passed.
CBN's Abigail Robertson. Thank you, Abby. Well, joining me now for our Friday Faith Nation panel, CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody and political reporter for The Hill, Julia Manchester. You just heard Abby talking about the hugely popular small business loan program, which ran out of money yesterday. Democrats, Republicans, and the president want to see another tranche. Julia, what's it going to take to get it done this time around?
I think this time around, we're obviously going to have to see Republicans and Democrats really come together on this. And I think there is definitely motivation because there's obviously some upset from them about the fact that it has run out. However, if this comes in the form of another stimulus and such, there's definitely probably going to be politics played. Republicans and Democrats want different things included in these larger stimulus packages. So it'll be interesting to see what form this really comes in.
David, shifting here, China is coming under intense scrutiny, even as it revised its official death count in Wuhan City by 50% today. Already we're seeing the fallout with the World Health Organization paying a price for towing that line. Are we witnessing the end of China's dominance on the world stage?
No, I don't think we're witnessing that quite yet. But here's a shock. You can't necessarily believe what China's telling us. And, of course, we all know that wasn't the case all along. And finally, China came clean on it. Look, I think it's very interesting here. Donald Trump is really kind of playing this as China. At least at this point, China is the villain. The WHO is the villain. Donald Trump needs a villain in this scenario. And he got one in China. He has one in the WHO. And I think that's what we're seeing more than anything from a political standpoint.
One day ago, the president deferred to state governors when it came to reopening the country. Today, he sends out a message to, quote, liberate certain states. David, is the president stepping on his own message here?
No, not at all. Look, let's dial this back. First of all, about, 3, 4, 5 days ago, it's all kind of a blur with Donald Trump. But he talked about, I have total authority. And what he was talking about then was clearly the money as it relates to, look, the states need help and the federal government will help them or not help them. So that's what he was talking about there. But no, he's not stepping on his message because he said in this new rollout, the reopening of America, that states will take the lead. And now we see certain protests popping up in certain states. And Donald Trump, who's always talked about a federalist approach, saying let the states decide. Well, look, if the people are going to start to get frustrated and say, hey, we want to no longer be quarantined, Donald Trump's probably going to support that. That's what he's always done. And let me just say, John, can I say, and I can only talk to people in my home because that's where I am for the last X amount of weeks. But I had predicted this a while back. I got to tell you, I said at some point the people are going to rise up and say, you know what, enough is enough. It's time to get out of our homes and go back to work, even if the public health is in jeopardy.
All right, real quickly here, last question. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin had said he might support President Trump in the November election. Today, he threw his support behind Joe Biden. Julia, what does that signal?
I think it definitely signals that he is, the Democratic Party is very united. He was probably getting signals from his colleagues, Senators Warren and Sanders, as well as former President Obama. Remember, Joe Manchin lives in West Virginia, a state that President Trump carried heavily in 2016, and he will likely win in 2020. So Joe Manchin is constantly walking a very political tightrope. However, with the Democratic Party starting to unify with Biden leading in a number of swing states, I think Joe Manchin just thought it was safe right now to announce his support for Biden.
Julia, David, we are out of time, so we're going to have to end it there. We hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. You too.
Coming up, senior disappointment. This year's high school graduates are about to miss important milestones, all because of COVID-19.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
Prophecy thousands of years old. We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religions he has, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
Welcome back. Well, more than 3 million high school seniors will graduate this year, and thanks to the ongoing pandemic, a good number will likely miss the usual pomp and circumstance. Many school systems have closed for the remainder of the year, meaning no proms or graduation ceremonies. CBN senior correspondent Eric Phillips explains why missing out on these traditions can be especially painful.
Some things like high school graduation and prom are seen as rites of passage and accomplishment. Sadly, many of those in the class of 2020 will be stripped of that through no fault of their own.
I love school, and I miss it like so much. I miss seeing my friends.
18-year-old Kenya Morris was all smiles on day one of her senior year at Caroline High School in Virginia. Little did she or anyone else know an international crisis would cut it short. She was blindsided by the news in March.
Of course, I was crying for like at least 2 hours because in the back of my head, I was kind of just like hoping that this isn't true, that this is going to go away. It's going to be fine. I'm still going to have a prom. I'm still going to have my graduation. It'll go away by April. It's going to be fine. But then they went, okay, school's canceled for the rest of the year. No prom, no graduation. Sorry. And though this is something that's completely out of our control, it was still like, dang it.
It's bittersweet as she and her family look at her senior portrait and pictures of her trying on her prom dress, even the cap and gown that arrived in the mail.
I wanted my prom to celebrate that, hey, this is my last year here. You've been working so hard for like a little over a decade, trying to get to this point, and all of a sudden it's just taken from you.
Through testing, school officials determined Kenya was developmentally delayed when she was 4 or 5 years old. Yet, by the 7th grade, she had worked through it, going on to thrive academically, and even becoming president of her high school's National Honor Society chapter.
I wanted my graduation to be like, I did it. I did it. Look at this. I did it. I've proven to myself and others I can do it. So can you.
I hate seeing their disappointment. That's hard as a mom, as a parent. That's really hard for me.
It's disappointing on all sides.
My oldest was homeschooled, and so I didn't get to see her walk across the stage. So Kenya was going to be our first one to walk across the stage, get the diploma, and I was so excited.
According to Caroline High's website, school officials hope to reschedule both events before the fall.
It's a very limited amount of time to get in a prom and a graduation. I hope they can do it. I do.
I didn't work this hard for nothing.
Though the current situation is disappointing, Kenya is still determined. She plans to attend Virginia Commonwealth University in the fall to study neonatal nursing. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Thank you, Eric. When we come back, from grocery store clerks to healthcare employees, how to flatten the COVID-19 curve for essential workers.
Too often we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5.
Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
With stay-at-home orders across the country, the coronavirus is highlighting our dependence on people doing essential jobs that help us eat and survive. Essential workers, from grocery store clerks to healthcare professionals, are keeping the economy running and keeping us safe, risking their lives while millions of Americans shelter in place. Well, joining me now is Father Thomas Reese, a Jesuit priest and an analyst at Religion News Service. Father, it's always great to see you.
Good to be with you again.
You know, it's often in hard times like these that we discover what we're made of and recalibrate priorities. You wrote something that was pretty poignant, that the people that you describe as the most important in the American economy 3 months ago look very different than the people you'd put in that category today.
Absolutely. I mean, 3 months ago, we would have said investors, CEO, venture capitalists, entrepreneurs, bankers. Today, we recognize that the most important people in the economy are the people who put the food on our grocery shelves, get the food to us, get the toilet paper to us, and all of the other things that we actually need to survive and to stay healthy. The first responders, all of these people. And the tragedy is that so many of these people are not rewarded by the marketplace. 70% of the people in the United States don't have $1,000 of savings. And I'll tell you, by now, it's worse than that because that $1,000 is gone. 42% of the people in the United States earn less than $15 a day. And many of these are the very people that are essential to our survival today, the farm workers, the grocery store clerks. These people are keeping us alive, and we kind of look down on them until now.
You know, you say the quarantine experience looks and feels different depending on one's socioeconomic background, ranging from unpleasant to very difficult to near impossible. Early on, we know that you were under quarantine yourself out of safety concerns. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Well, we had one of our Jesuits in our community was tested positive for the virus in the middle of April. in the middle of March. And so he had to isolate. Now, we put him in a room. Luckily, he had his own bathroom. We brought him food, left it at the door. And he had a horrible experience. But luckily, it wasn't so bad he had to go to the hospital. Now, the rest of us were quarantined by the public health department. That meant we could not leave the residence. No one could come in, no family, no colleagues, no employees. We were lucky because we had friends who would bring us groceries and that sort of thing. But imagine the family that has to do that. I mean, how many people have a room with a bathroom that they can, isolate somebody in who's sick? How many people can keep social distance in a normal suburban house, let alone in public housing and poor quarters that so many people live in. This is, the poor are, it's no surprise that the high percentage of blacks and Hispanics are dying of this virus because of the living conditions they're in. They're in close quarters living. They had health issues to begin with. They don't have good health care in their neighborhoods. All of these things are revealing to us that we have not been paying attention.
All right. Well, Father Ruiz, we thank you for highlighting these important numbers for us. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Good to be with you. I hope stay healthy.
Thank you. You as well. Well, coming up, the nation's capital feeling and looking a little blue this week. It's all for a good cause, though. That story when we come back.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
From Washington, D.C., uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody.
Escalating fight.
Jenna Browder.
Chose his words carefully.
Ben Kennedy.
Plan to join him.
And Amber Strong.
For impeachment grows a little bit louder.
Bringing you the political news that matters.
We get out and tell the story of the progress that we're making in this country.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6 on the CBN News Channel.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religion he has, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
And finally tonight, like many famous landmarks honoring frontline workers dealing with the pandemic, an iconic church in the nation's capital is joining the global tribute to Lighten Hearts. The Washington National Cathedral shut its doors last month amid social distancing guidelines, but now the building is lit up in blue with the words "Thank you" beaming over the front doors. The gesture is to show appreciation for the heroes fighting COVID-19. Both the cathedral and the Capitol wheel at the nearby National Harbor are turning blue every night this week. The cathedral also donated 5,000 respirator masks to Georgetown University Hospital and Children's National Hospital. And as we navigate these dark and uncertain times together, we encourage you to keep your light shining in creative and encouraging ways. And we'll keep bringing you stories of hope. Well, thank you so much for watching. We hope you have a great night and a great weekend. Stay safe.